Good morning and a happy Sabbath to all of you fellow publishing house workers and members of the famous Philippine Progress team. I am so glad to be able to join you from Loma Linda, California through this wonderful medium that we call the YouTube. I'd like to start my testimony this morning by quoting a statement that is very familiar to us in the publishing ministry circle from Testimonies, Volume 7, page 138. It says, "Our publishing work was established by the direction of God and under His direct supervision." I believe this is true with the publishing work of the church in general and with the establishment of Philippine Publishing House in particular. Today, I'd also like to propose to each one of us that the essence of this statement is true in our experience as workers of Philippine Publishing House. This is definitely true in my experience in how I became connected with this great institution. I became a regular worker of the house in January 1975 and left as associate editor in March 1986. But my love affair with the publishing ministry really started years back when I became a colporteur in the Southern Luzon Mission right after my graduation from high school. I followed the footsteps of my siblings, my brother and my sister, who spent years of service in the publishing ministry. I was also a student literature evangelist in the Central Luzon Conference while I was pursuing my studies at the then Philippine Union College here in Baisa, Caloocan City. Now, through all these years, my understanding and perception of the role, the principles, and the practice of the publishing work has developed and evolved from what I understood as basically a business and ministry model to what I now call the three-legged stool ministry model of the corporate work. I will elaborate on this idea later as I close my testimony today. Right now, I'd like to share with you how God prepared me for my ministry at Philippine Publishing House. You see, I was born in the barrio, in the foothills of Mount Irga in the province of Camarines Sur. Right there, I had very nil access to the printed word, but I really loved to read, so much so that I would read every word and sentence and paragraph in the bits and pieces of newspapers that wrapped the goods that my parents bought from the local market. From there, I developed a skill in spelling and writing so that I was always chosen year after year as my school's contestant in spelling and theme writing during what we then called academic and literary contests among the schools. But God's guidance was really more clear and distinct when I was already studying at Philippine Union College. I remember one summer between my sophomore and junior years, I was at a crossroad. I was trying to decide what major to take in college. And so I remember one day while walking from the administration building in the campus of PUC towards the Jackson Severance Hall, I paused for a brief minute right where the flagpole was and uttered a very simple prayer. I said, God, please guide me in my decision whether I should take the AB English degree or the ministerial course. You see, I had this desire to do a double major, but somehow I did not have the financial resources to do so. So that was out of the question. Both lines of studies were appealing to me. You know, many of the leaders in the student population were taking AB English, and I thought, wow, that's status. And of course, I have the inclination towards that study. But somehow, I was circulating among friends in college, most of them were taking the ministerial course, so I wanted to take that course as well. So, to make the long story short, 2 weeks after I uttered that prayer, I received a letter from Pastor Vicente Napod, who was then president of Southern Luzon Mission. In essence, he told me that the mission was willing to give me financial assistance, but only if I took the ministerial degree. And so I took that as loud and clear, God's answer to my prayer for guidance. And so I enrolled the next semester, taking majors in ministry. And it was during my junior year that this announcement from Philippine Publishing House came to the college. The announcement said that the house was looking for the first editorial intern. But they specified that the intern should be taking the ministerial course and not necessarily an AB English degree. Long story short, I was chosen, and then I began my stint as an editorial intern at Philippine Publishing House. I worked with, I had the privilege of working with my editor-in-chief, the late Pastor Flor B. Conopio, and together we were able to do some significant initiatives in the history of the publishing house. First of this was the holding of the first writing or writer's workshop at Villa Escudero Resort on April 15 to 19 in 1984. You see, we had this problem in the editorial department. We encountered this problem of a dearth of local articles written by local or Philippine writers, which were relevant to the situation of our readers. So this was the motivation for this workshop. Although we didn't have any funding because it was just a proposal from us. So the house had no budget for it at that time. But Pastor Conopio was able to solicit the help of the Choir Hour Ministry, who donated an amount that was enough for us to finance that first writers' workshop. So from then on, this has been a trend. I understand many more writers' workshops were held after I left the house in 1986. The second significant initiative that I can think of during my stint here was the change in the publication sequence of the issues of Health and Home magazine from monthly to bi-monthly. We encountered this problem where we were being asked whether it was still okay to publish or print the Health and Home magazine. Subscriptions were dwindling, and the cost of production was making a loss. So we did our research. We made our recommendations to the board, and the board approved our proposal. So that we were able to initiate publishing the issues of Health and Home bi-monthly, reducing the cost of each issue as well as being able to improve both the content and the quality of the paper as well. A third significant thing that I can think of is the production or the printing of the Sabbath School quarterlies here at Philippine Publishing House. You see, we had this perennial problem. We had these complaints from the field that we were delivering the quarterlies quite late. So we started our research again. We were able to negotiate with Review and Herald Publishing Association, so much so that we were able to accelerate the production of the quarterlies in this house. And so we were able to solve the problem of delivering the quarterlies to the churches on time. The last one I'd like to mention is our plan to computerize the fulfillment section of the subscription to Health and Home magazine. We made our studies, we made projections of how much we would save per copy, per issue, and sent our recommendation to the house management. However, because of certain challenges, we were not able to implement that plan. But I understand that, however, that years later, computerization became a policy or a common working order in this house. At the start of my testimony, I mentioned about my understanding, my evolving understanding of the role, the principles, and practice of the culture ministry. So in closing, I'd just like to share with you some familiar statements again to many of us, but somehow gives me some insight as to how we should improve the practice of the culture ministry. The first one is taken from Testimonies, Volume 6, page 323. It says that the Lord calls, I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong quotation. It says, genuine medical missionary work is bound up with the ministry, and the canvassing work is to be a part of the medical missionary work and of the ministry. So here we see the three-legged stool ministry model of the colporteur ministry. Medical missionary work, evangelistic work, and the canvassing work. All in an integrated, synergistic ministry. The second quotation is taken from That Other Angel, page 14. The Lord calls for many more to engage in the canvassing work. Every member of the church is to show his or her loyalty by inviting the thirsty to drink of the water of life, which means every member of the church, everywhere throughout the world, should be engaged in canvassing work, in the distribution of our publications. So here we see an inclusive and global ministry, publishing ministry of the church. The last two quotations I'd like to read now. First one is from Testimonies, Volume 4, page 600. There is a great work to be done in the day of God's preparation in devising and executing plans for the advancement of His cause. Our publications should have a wide circulation, for they are doing a great work. There is much missionary work to be done. The second quotation is from Testimonies, Volume 6, page 476. New methods and new plans will spring from new circumstances. New thoughts will come with new workers who give themselves to the work. They will receive plans devised by the Lord Himself. So here in this quotation we see a dynamic and progressive publishing ministry of the church. I pray that the great accomplishments prophesied regarding the publishing ministry of which we are all involved will be realized during the closing work of the gospel throughout the world. It is our challenge as lovers of the publishing ministry, as leaders and workers in the publishing ministry, how to apply these principles, how to operationalize them in every level of the organization in the church, but mostly in the everyday activity of the colporteur as they do their work. God bless us all. Happy 100 years celebration of the continuous publishing ministry of Philippine Publishing House.